Chief, one of the concerns that has brought up is the actions in the schools. Part of the challenges that we have is that we work in tandem with school administration policy. So share with me how we work in tandem with them, because when we now, in a school, taking the idea from Commissioner Hill, an 8-year-old makes a threat that we think that comes to us through a school administrator. By the time it gets to us, it really has been there have been some contact with the school administration to that child, so that we know that it's pretty serious by the time it gets to us. Is that correct?
That's correct. In most cases, it is the school administrators that are reaching out to either the school resource officer or other law enforcement when there has been an issue.
So this really addresses those where we know that there are pretty serious threats. So some kids saying something on the playground, if they're in school, the school administration handles that, and they have some administration that will be able to have a conversation with the child and find out how serious that is.
That's correct.
So this is a chance for us to take other ways to accomplish that task.
Yes, sir.
And this next is, do we have staffing enough to be able to continue this? Are we going to use existing staff? I mean, how are we monitoring these today?
So we're very fortunate in Central Florida and the city of Orlando. Not many other jurisdictions have what we have. We have 2 school resource officers for every high school, 1 officer for every middle school, 1 officer for every 4 elementary schools, and we are exploring the idea of additionally staffing those elementary schools with reserve officers. But in the meantime, all those schools get extra patrol and attention from our officers. Obviously, we're very sensitive and aware to what has happened here in Parkland and really around the nation. So we definitely pay close attention to our schools.
But broader than that, this really also would address any social media threats against a group of people. I mean, it's not necessarily related to just a school, although that is an important thing for us to do.
That's correct. If someone made a similar threat to a building or an institution, it would fall under this ordinance as well.
Same category. Is that how you understand it as well, too, Kyle? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Commissioner Ortiz.
Maybe when I was congratulating our staff, maybe I should have, instead of that, explained also for the benefit of the public that there's, and now it's not talking as a commissioner, but as a former police officer, there's a bunch of elements that have to be taken into consideration when investigating one of these things. There's the credibility of the threat, if it's viable, the mental state of the person, the age, all these different aspects, which when Commissioner Hill was talking, of course, it's a 6-year-old kid writes something like this on Facebook. When the officers investigating, and Chief, help me, tell me if I'm right or wrong. I mean, all these different elements will be taken into consideration, because if it's not a credible threat, if it's somebody, and if it's a kid, which we know, for whatever reason, maybe by watching too much TV or whatnot, kid decides to write something like this. Well, all those things will be taken into consideration. And of course, I don't think a police officer is going to go and rush into putting into cuffs onto a kid without first analyzing all these things. And what people also need to understand is that our police officers are trained to make this assessment in combination with school officials or whatnot. So when this decision is made, it's going to be a transparent, a responsible decision if an arrest has to be made. And I'm pretty sure the chief, we have in-service training about these things and all these kind of elements that would help our police officers be more assertive in terms of the decision making when it comes to one of these things. But what is most important here is that we'll have the tools to investigate this, and that there's going to be repercussions to those who knowingly and with malice, or maybe with the key word here would be with intent, would do something like this. So rest assured that this is not going to be just as soon as somebody writes something, it's going to be arrested. There's going to be an investigation about each one of these cases. And I'm pretty sure, just like Commissioner Hill said, each case will be judged on its merits. Thank you, Mayor.
That's correct, Commissioner. And right now there are juveniles who commit a variety of offenses, and we respond to those cases. And not in every situation do we put handcuffs on a juvenile. We're looking at the best interest of the child, and is it just proper to give that person a juvenile civil citation or just release them to their parents because of the young age of the child. So, like you said, we're going to take all that into account. As stated, this just gives us an additional tool to continue that investigation and put handcuffs on someone when needed to ensure the safety of our citizens.
Thank you, Chief.
Transparency, it is happening, Chief, right here in our city, in our schools, that we have young African-American boys in my district being locked up. So, I mean, I just can't sit here on this dais and act as if I don't have 7 and 8 and 9, 10-year-old kids being locked up at school. So I just, as we move forward, I just want us to be considerate about that. And it's not a city problem. This is OCPS, but it's happening. And for me to sit on this dais and to pretend that there isn't a prison, a school to prison, a pipeline through our youth as early as 3 years old, by their behaviors, not saying they're being targeted, but by their behaviors, when we must address mental health. Also, along with putting them in handcuffs and taking them to the Jack Center, taking them down to Bumby, releasing them to their parents. So I do think while we're making this emergency ordinance, there's some other things that we have to address. We're family here. So it has to be done in a holistic manner.
Commissioner, totally understand. And me, like my 803 officers, we didn't get into this profession